Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to the Damon Friedman Show. This isn't just a standard podcast. Absolutely not. This is a movement, and movements are always started by leaders that are passionate about a cause. They organize a group, and what they do is they execute and accomplish the mission. When we want to learn from these world changers, how they're making an atomic impact in this world. And today, I'm telling you right now, we've got an extraordinary leader on deck here, and we're going to be talking about something that's extremely sensitive. So warning for everybody out there, this is not going to be your standard interview. Not at all. We're going to be talking about something that's going to make people feel extremely uncomfortable, specifically men, to be exact. Not that women don't struggle with this topic or this issue here, but it's one that's very, very prevalent within men. And we're going to be talking about pornography. That's right, porn, and what it's doing to America. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the one and the only, the man, the myth, the legend, the executive coach of coaches, Coach Frank. Welcome to the podcast, bro. How are you?
Damon, good to be back, brother.
Yeah.
Hey, man, thank you.
Can you hear everybody just, I don't know, like clapping their hands, applauding? It's amazing. Coach Frank, you walked in. You look really jacked. What do you do? I mean, you must be carrying half of the gym with you. What's going down here, man?
Well, I did squats in the parking lot before walking in here.
Yeah.
And that was after, 3 minutes in the cold water.
Yeah.
Morning, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you were talking about this cold plunge. We have to talk about it right off the bat, because let me tell you something. This is something that makes a lot of people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The cold plunge. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you know the benefits, man. I think it's a part of what you do in some of your curriculum with the mental health side of the PTSD with the guys that you're working with, man. So, yeah, I mean, I think more and more research has come out. You hear guys like Huberman out there. Rogan's obviously a big advocate. So there's so much good physiologically that comes out of it. Obviously an increase in dopamine, self-regulation of your central nervous system. So when you're stressed throughout the day, kind of pull that back in. For me, man, it's become a part of the day that I don't want to do. So that's why I do it. Staring at the water for 30 seconds every morning when it's 39, 40 degrees, you don't want to get in.
So cold.
But the minute you do, you don't regret it, right? You feel incredible. The minute your skin touches that water, you get your head underneath and you just chill, dude, for 3-4 minutes. It's become a staple, man. For 6 months now, I haven't missed a day. And I don't think I'll ever stop.
You literally submerge all the way, even with your head?
I immediately jump in. I go about 5-10 seconds, full submersion. Then I come back up to the neck, and then I'll do a 3 to 5 minute, protocol every single morning at 41 degrees right now is what I had the chiller set at.
Dude, I'm going to tell you. So I ran cross country track, and there was a stint where I ran for Western State. For all of you back in the day, Western State, we crushed it. We were national champions. I was able to be part of that team. And we would literally lay in the creek in Colorado, cold.
Yep.
I mean, it was cold. Like I couldn't even, like the first minute, I couldn't even feel my toes, right? But the benefits, man, just for the legs. Rarely did I ever go beyond, beyond the hips, right? But usually just with the, the legs and stuff. But no, I mean, I know that it's exceptional.
Well, yeah, the recovery side of things, man. I've been training hard for 20 years of my life. I was a competitive bodybuilder for about a decade. I just turned 40 a couple months ago, man. And,
40,
very, very blessed, very fortunate.
Holy smokes.
Injury free.
Wow.
I recover to a degree now that allows me to turn these things over despite being busy running multiple businesses.
Yeah.
Like I'm able to still hit it 5-6 days a week. Sleep has been amazing. It's had massive improvements on my sleep as well. So across the board, man, I was asked a question, better self-care, sauna or cold plunge.
Yeah.
And I love both, and both are a part of my daily routine. If I had to keep one, though, it would be the Iceman. I don't see myself ever not submerging myself in the cold.
Man, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know if you're listening to everything that Coach Frank is saying. If you're not, bad on you. We're not here to talk about the cold plunge, but I'm here to tell you that the cold plunge is calling out your name. It's calling out my name right now. I can feel it. I could totally benefit from it because I'm still like you, I'm getting a bit older and I need to make sure that I can stay as fit as possible. And the cold plunge is definitely doing some great things.
And there are benefits and value to the work that I do, right? I mean, when you look at what part of an addiction recovery process is, it's the rebalancing of your healthy neurotransmitters.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're seeking these outlets, whether it's with pornography, sex, drugs, gambling, across
Mm-hmm.
the board, whatever that deficiency is in your life, you're seeking some external gratification
Yeah.
through that behavior or through that substance. Well, that substance is producing unhealthy doses of certain neurochemicals, dopamine being a big driver
Yeah.
with pornography. Well, if I can experience the levels of dopamine to a 2.5x increase by submerging myself in the cold every single morning for a sustained period of time. See, that's when you take a hit of cocaine or you watch pornography, you get a massive spike in your dopamine, but then it's immediately followed by a decrease. The science points to when you submerge yourself in the cold, that spike now sustains itself for 6 to 8 hours. So you just get that rush, but then you have a feeling of like the sustained high from a chemical perspective that drives you through the day. And that's why I start in the morning with it. It's helped me not fully get off the caffeine because I do love coffee, but 1 cup as opposed to in the past, it was 3 cups to kind of get the day started. It's like, so the benefits do go beyond just like doing hard things, especially on the recovery physiological side of things that we do with the men that we work with.
Wow. That's so awesome, which is a perfect segue into who is Coach Frank here, because you're already starting to share a little bit about the work that you do. You work with men struggling with pornography. It's like you're the subject matter expert. When anybody, a leader or a teammate is struggling with something like this, they call Coach Frank. Yeah. But before we even begin with the work that you're doing, tell us, how did you get where you're at right now?
Yeah.
Tell us the story.
Absolutely, Damon. I appreciate that, man. And I appreciate you, for opening up, your platform, your studio here today to address this conversation. Mm-hmm. One of my goals, both with today and everything that I do, is to remove that label, though, that you started the show
I like
with,
that.
Right?
Yeah.
If we know that 70% of men are consuming pornography on a regular basis, if we know that 25% of all internet searches are pornographic based, why does it have to be a secret? Why does it have to be something that's sensitive? The mental health crisis is a real thing. And a lot of it is driven by the fact that so many people won't address this. So I want to obviously respect you and thank you for opening it up, but it's always been my goal since I started talking about these things 5 years ago to have that not be the case.
And I have to say this, Coach Frank, did you hear what he just said? Man, I didn't even know the statistics. I want you to once again say it so that because he just fired out a statistic that's extremely significant. What is the percentage of men that are struggling with pornography and consuming it?
Well, so 70% of men, and this is the ones that participate in a research study, 70% of men admit to consuming pornography at least on a monthly basis. Mm-hmm. Now, if you subtract that down to, okay, what percentage of those men admit to having an addiction or a compulsive behavior that is beyond their control, it's about 10%. Mm-hmm. Once again, I think that there's obviously got to be a big asterisk to that, because in order for me to raise my hand and admit that I'm struggling with porn, I got to be, I've at this point already transcended some of the shame that's tied to it. I would say that probably somewhere between 30 to 40% of the men that are watching pornography right now have a compulsive addiction that maybe they're not fully aware of the impact that it's having on them.
No, I 100% agree with you, Coach Frank. Absolutely. Yeah. Most people are not going to say, "Oh, I have this addiction that is uncontrollable." 100%. There's no way. And even if it's not 70%, let's just say that 1 out of every 2 men was consuming pornography on a consistent basis. That's a problem. Yeah. Right. I mean, not to marginalize if it was 1 out of 10. I'm saying the fact that 1 out of every 2 it's an epidemic. Yeah. And so I agree with you totally. Most people, because of the shame and because of the guilt associated with it, they're not going to admit, oh man, I got an addiction to pornography. Yeah. Right. So how did you get here? I mean, why are you so passionate about this? I'm sure our audience or listeners, our viewers, they want to know, like, what did Coach Frank one day go, well, I got to figure out how to save the world today. I'm looking to empower men. I think I'll just I could do weightlifting for them. I can help them, figure out how to overcome, to be more successful. Wait, well, hold on a second. Porn. Nobody's doing porn. I'll just do porn. Of course, that's not the way it worked, right? So tell us the story. Like, what happened? Like, why are you so passionate about this topic?
Man. I think, Damon, much like you, man, I've always felt the call, and I've always felt something inside of me that has wanted to help. It has wanted to be an influence. You mentioned a couple things, bodybuilding, fitness training, business coaching, all things that I've done in the past. I mean, I call myself Coach Frank because I think that a part of how God made me was as a coach. Yeah. I think that that's just a certain, called gift or skill or ability or just something that drives me from the inside. It's to actually help people move their life forward. Even going back to growing up as a kid, like I was the one that was trying to help other kids. I was trying, I was organizing sports. I was doing things. I was always collectively trying to bring people together. Some of that was probably driven by some inadequacies and challenges that I saw within myself, right? Some self-identity issues that I've had to work and kind of, overcome in my life. But at my core, man, I am a coach. I am somebody that wants to help other people move forward in their life. Now, how did I end up in this space talking about this topic? It started with my own journey, despite having some success in the fitness realm, despite having some bodybuilding success, and despite having some early entrepreneurship success, I did struggle for 20 years with a pornography addiction. Much of why I'm passionate to talking about it today is because there's nobody talking about it when I was coming up. Now we live in a different world. Technology is different than it was when I was in my 20s. So maybe the issue wasn't as big and prevalent back then, but I got to think, man, if there was a guy that I looked up to in my early 20s that was having these regular conversations, would my life have been on a different trajectory? Like had I maybe made some different choices early on about removing and stopping some of the things that I was getting caught up with. So, short story here, man. I found my faith in late 2018 as a 35-year-old man that had really struggled to finding his way in this world. I sought a lot of external material things to fill an empty hole inside of me. And being around some really inspiring men in the business and fitness world through 2017, 2018 led me to finding Christ. And I gave my life to Christ on October 22nd, 2018 in downtown Orlando on Church Street. Funny enough. And that began a journey, man, of me really unpacking who I was and trying to get clear and begin to really walk in alignment.
So, it's just interesting. A lot of the people that I have on my podcast, I don't even ask them. Many of them, they have this moment. There's an intersection in their lives and they meet God. And I'm sure it's God meeting them where they're at. And right here, right off the bat, you shared that you had a radical transforming experience, and all of a sudden, the new trajectory of your life, here we are. Yeah. The reason why I'm just taking this pause is because, man, I've been doing a lot of these podcasts, and every single time people are talking about their faith, it's a driving force. It does something to human beings. And I say this because you just shared that, you became a believer in 2018. Well, for me, 2010 was a year that where I met God, or better yet, God met me. And that changed who I am. Yeah. And it actually was the impetus of why we're running a nonprofit. Yeah. Right. I mean, 8 billion people in the whole world. And I believe without a shadow of a doubt that every human being has a gift I call a superpower. And that superpower, many people will never even find that superpower, but we receive that. Yeah. It's our gift. It's our one. It's what we have. Everyone has their own. Yeah. Right. And the reality is that you're using your superpower to change and empower, to empower men. And I'm using my superpower to change and transform lives in the veteran and military community. So here you are, you had an experience with God, and then boom, in 2018, and where do we go from there?
Yeah, man. I mean, God damn it. I think I told you this when I had you on the Superhuman Life. Our missions and our stories are so aligned, and we're clearly moving in exactly the same direction. I think God is using us in very parallel ways to contribute to the world. Talking about this hole that we have in our heart, man. It's funny. I'll hear atheists say in the same sentence, they'll say, "I don't believe in God," yet every person has a God-sized hole in their heart. One of the books that we prescribe to our men in our curriculum is a book called Surfing for God. It's written by Michael John Cusick. It actually is a book that I heard prior to finding my faith in 2018 and really began to force me to ask some questions, because this was the first time I heard two vulnerable men talk about their struggles with pornography. The author, Michael John Cusick, was being interviewed. But there's a quote in the book that he quotes G.K. Chesterton from the late 1800s. G.K. Chesterton obviously was a great writer, did a lot of work in the Christian missionary space. He's got this quote back from the 1800s that every man that's knocking on a brothel door is knocking for God. And Michael has taken that message and he wrote the book Surfing for God. We're dealing with the internet world today. We have, literally a drug dealer. If you're struggling with pornography, it's in your pocket every single day. So every search in Pornhub, every image that we seek out on Instagram is us seeking something to fill the hole that only God can fill in our hearts. So for me, that became clear in October of 2018. Frank, you've been chasing all these things out there in the world, material success, bodybuilding success, sex, status, whatever it was, to fill this hole inside of you. Well, the only thing that's going to make you full and complete and at peace is going to be if you let God into that hole. So that was the experience for me.
So, we're sitting here and we're talking about our faith, and immediately some listeners out there is like, oh, when we talk about pornography and it's like, it's taboo and all that's a Christian thing. That's just in the church, right? This is all this God talk, right? But in all reality, one of the reasons why I'm having you on this show is because I know a lot of people that have no faith at all, or better yet, it's just culturally, they don't really have a relationship. It's not, they really don't do, the Christian thing. And pornography is literally unraveling their life. It's decimating their marriages. It's killing their families. It's even kept them from being the best leader in their companies, the best leader in the organization. Some people go, well, what is porn? Like, really? Why? I mean, is porn really that big of a deal? I'm just going to sit there and, I'm going to look at whatever and I'll have, an experience or a moment or whatever it is. And it's like that, it's not a big deal. It's really not a big deal. Coach Frank, is it really a big deal? Right? I mean, we're sitting here and we're talking about it. What does porn do in people's lives? Right? I mean, is it really just something that churches talk about? Is it just something that, people who are in the faith-based community say it's wrong? I mean, well, why is porn so bad?
Yeah. I mean, that hasn't been my experience, man. And I think one of the things that's enabled me to succeed to the level that I have is, my faith guides me, right? It's the foundation of everything that I do in this world. But when you hear me talk outside of this little conversation that we're having here, like in our curriculum and the things that we provide from a content perspective, very rarely am I citing any scripture. Very rarely am I bringing church, Bible, God into that conversation. I take a very practical, scientific approach to our recovery. And I think that's what's been able or allowed me to position myself in this field that oftentimes is come at it from a shame perspective, or it is, Bible thumping, or you got to read more Bible, you got to pray harder, read this verse. People don't want to hear that. People want to say, you know what, like, how do I actually take control of this in my life? What are the behavioral changes that I need to do? So it's obviously got a massive impact that it's having on the church. Things that we've talked about here before jumping on recording today is when I got on the other side of this. So I'll kind of tie a little bit more of my story into this and how it's led to everything. So we talked about October 18th, really finding my faith. It was 4 months later until I really confronted the issue with pornography. So I was 36 years old. This is February 14th of 2019. Wow. I had struggled and wrestled with this thing for 2 decades plus, in and out of quitting, failing, relapsing, keeping it secret from girlfriends, keeping it private, watching it in public restrooms, avoiding social interactions. Like, it had a grip on me like very few people would actually understand. When I really began to confront it, starting with conversations with men in my life, men that I felt safe and comfortable with, saying, hey, I think I got this thing that I'm struggling with. And every single time to be like, it's okay, man. Like, you're not the only one. You're not the only unique one about this. So for me, it was getting on the other side of it in 2019, allowing my brain to heal, allowing my brain to reset, beginning to see the world differently, beginning to no longer look at every single woman in my life as a sexual object. Oh, you're a daughter of Christ. Like, you're an actual human being. How can I serve you? How can I love you? How can I show up differently? So without really knowing what was happening, I was changing from the inside out. And people started to see that in me. And people were like, Frank, you're different now. Maybe go start talking about this. I'd always been compelled by this type of content. I'd always been somebody that loved the podcasting space and said, you know what, one day I'm going to have one of those things. I didn't know where it was going to come from, but this for me was the opportunity in July of 2019. I had this story. I'd overcome these things. I had been a self-development junkie. I had been a bodybuilder. I had reached peak performance in many areas of my life. Yet I was still struggling with pornography. Wait a minute. Are there millions of men out there that don't have the opportunities that I didn't chase some of this peak performance stuff, don't have access to the information that I have? Do they need to hear about this? How can that maybe change their lives? So my original mission back in 2019 was to start a podcast, to share my story and open up a platform to share other people's stories as well. And that was the first 20, 25 episodes of the Superhuman Life. We got very lucky. Apple picked us up and put us on the front page.
Very cool.
We got some early traction.
That's great.
And what was amazing, Damon, is I was already somewhat of a public figure. I don't like saying that about myself because it sounds like I'm, bragging, but there was a presence online, socially. There was an email list that was consuming my content. I was speaking very heavily in the fitness space. We had muscle building programs, was doing fitness coaching. So people were already listening to the things that Frank was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I began to open up the conversation and have the real conversation that men needed to hear, Damon, it was like a swarm of mosquitoes, man. It was like everybody just latched on and said, oh my God, like this muscle bound dude, like this jack guy, like he's talking about these things. Like, let me peek in a little bit, more like what's going on over here.
Yeah.
And dude, the inbound messages just radically changed. Frank, it was no longer, thank you for your muscle building tips. You helped me get 6-pack abs. You helped me get stronger.
Right?
I still love hearing that stuff, right? If my fitness content can help you improve your physical life, amazing. But it was like, Frank, thank you for having these real honest conversations.
That's right.
Both men and women.
Yeah.
6-7 months goes by and guys are like, Frank, can you help me? And I'd been free at this point for a year now. I'd done 30 episodes of the podcast. I'm beginning to be interviewed by other people. So I was slowly, I wouldn't even say I was an expert at that point, but I was slowly beginning a little bit of an authority in the space that guys are like, hey, can you help me do this thing over here?
Right.
The thing that you're talking about, I need that in my life. So Rebuilt Recovery, which is our company now that we, do coaching and programs and really work with guys intimately with, was birthed out of a need of people saying, hey, Frank, can you help us? I was focused on the fitness and I was focused on building a marketing agency. We're having a lot of success over there. So I'm wrestling now. It's like, okay, well, we're doing good things in the marketing space over here, but God is telling me that men need me over here. So I had a radical decision I needed to make in the summer of 2020. This is pandemic, like the world is shutting down. I'm like, I'm going to step away from marketing and I'm going to go all in on this coaching thing. So the summer of 2020, like I've literally left my position in the marketing agency and said, I'm going all in on Rebuilt Recovery. So now 3.5 years, and that's been our focus is building curriculums out, having, various communities and programs. We have group coaching, one-on-one coaching. There's a book coming down the pipeline, and it's just been getting in the trenches and figuring out, what's driving guys to get to this thing? What do they need to overcome it? What's the root issues? But then what's that recovery process look like paired with the faith component? So we're going to layer it obviously with a biblical foundation, but then we're going to look at it from the behavioral standpoint, CBT type therapy. We're going to look at it from the holistic health standpoint. If we can heal your gut, how's that going to change the health of your brain? And get these guys, pursuing maybe bigger meanings and purposes in their life. So
man, like Coach Frank, I'm just going to go from backwards to forward, right? Like what you just said right now. I love your holistic approach because the way that we do business at SOF Missions is it's psychological fitness, physical fitness, cognitive fitness, social fitness, spiritual fitness. And we really believe that when people are going to make a difference in their lives, you have to actually address issues holistically, because whatever the problem is, a lot of times it permeates in different domains of humans. So you sat there, you talked about the gut physiologically, right? You talked about the brain cognitively. You talked about, the faith-based piece that's spiritually, right? Like the reality is that we are spiritual human beings. We're made of mind, body, and soul. And so we should address, these challenges considering these different domains of humanity. I love that. The second thing that you mentioned, where you made your major transition in life, you just said, man, I was this great entrepreneur. I had this marketing, I had this, this fitness thing, but in reality, really good at all those things, but you understand that there's a greater purpose in life, right? And we just had this conversation in my office. It's like, man, what does success mean? Does it mean, X amount of dollars making more, the car that you drive, the house that you own, the bank in your, the money in your bank, those kind of things. And it was a great conversation on what success actually means, because we talked about what are really the most important things in life. Great to build an entire empire, but to lose your own family, stuff like that. So I love your heart. I did the same thing. You could be doing anything in the world. You can, and so can I. But I choose to help my veteran community, my military community, because they do need the help and the need is there. It is. There's not enough resources for veterans out there. There just isn't. Providing free high-end NFL level kind of medical care. I mean, where does that occur? Pornography. I'm telling you right now, there's only a few programs that I'm familiar with. In fact, I'll just say only one. Celebrate Recovery is the only one that I know of any addiction, but it's general addiction, right? And so they've got these principles, and it's a great program. But I love your hyper focus. I wouldn't call you, like just a standard soldier. You're a sniper. You're not just standard infantry. You're a sniper. You're looking at a very particular issue, and you're addressing it looking through through that scope with that long, heavy barrel, and you're prosecuting this target, this enemy that's somehow infiltrated into people's lives and is literally destroying everything of who they are. Pornography is a major issue. It really, really is. And it's a big struggle with a lot of leaders out there, which is a perfect segue with this. As you're running rebuiltrecovery.com so that you're empowering men to combat this evil enemy. And again, I'm here to tell you that there's some listeners out there be like, man, I could see how porn could, if there's an addiction, could destroy my life, but it's not, or whatever. And so this is a conversation that you have to continuously have with yourself. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to tell you that I think pornography, period, I think it's very, very unhealthy. Yeah. It really is. And the majority of people that are struggling with it will admit that it is a very, very bad thing, right? It's a cancer in their life, and it's killing them slowly. So as you're running rebuiltrecovery.com, the audience wants to know a little bit more about, okay, there's Padawans out there, Coach, right now. There are people out there like, man, Coach Frank, man, he's on point. How can I be like Coach Frank? How can here's this jack dude, phenomenal, heavily involved in bodybuilding and fitness industry, marketing it. But man, I just love his heart, how he's just like trying to help men, trying to help people fight this addiction, right? So you found your cause. We found your cause, and it's a very important cause. Not enough resources out there. We need Coach Frank everywhere. We need rebuiltrecovery.com all over America, period. Regardless of what people's, spiritual convictions are, regardless of their walks of life. And pornography infects people of all different classes, not just the wealthy, not just the poor, not just middle class, every human being. It's a weakness for a lot of men. That's the reality. And women. In fact, pornography, based off of research, is saying that there are more women looking at pornography than ever, which is a major, major issue. But so you're running this very successful company. It's incredible. And I want our listeners out there, and they're dying to hear from you, Coach. Yeah. They know what to expect when they're on this podcast, on the Damon Friedman show. This is a movement. They want to know how they're going to start their movement. Coach Frank, if there's one leadership trait, that you want to press upon the next Coach Frank, that Padawan goes, man, tell me the one characteristic. There's a lot. Mm-hmm. You only get one. Yeah. What is it, Coach?
Yeah. Great question, man. And I want to circle back to that, but I want to address the guy that's out there that's maybe hearing this and his immediate response is to roll his eyes, balk at it. Oh, what's he talking about? There's no such thing. First off, I think we need to, if that's our initial response when you hear this conversation, mm-hmm. I think you got to ask yourself a couple questions. Is A, why is it immediate something that you deflect? Mm-hmm. And secondly, I'm not here to tell you that it is a big issue. Mm-hmm. And if it's not a big issue in your life, I'm pretty sure you can go an extended period of time without it. So if you're going to look me in the eye and tell me that you don't have a struggle and challenge with it, mm-hmm. and you are consuming it on a regular basis, mm-hmm. then I present a challenge back to you mm-hmm. to go 30 days without it, because it's going to reveal a couple things to you. For one, if you can't go 30 days without it, and by the end of the 7th day, you're exactly in the same position, consuming the pornography, there's your sign, brother, right? And if you do go 30 days, I can guarantee that you will be different. Yeah. You will feel different. Yeah. Your brain will operate to a different level. Mm-hmm. You will feel more peace. Mm-hmm. You will feel more present with mm-hmm. human beings in your life. Mm-hmm. And you will just operate from a different mm-hmm. level of frequency and vibration as a human being, as a human spirit. So addressing that guy, I think is important, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
So you just dropped a bomb. So we'll go back to this leadership trait because you had to address it, and I could see it, right? Yeah. The same thing with alcohol for me. I'm just throwing it out there. The people out there, because in the veteran space, alcoholism is very prevalent. People drink themselves to sleep. It's something that consumes them. If you literally, and I always tell people when it comes to recovering, like if you really are struggling with PTSD, chronic pain, mild traumatic brain, all these things, dude, and sleep in particular. Yeah. If alcohol is a major issue in your life, then you got to end it. And I'm also going to tell you, it's like most of the dudes like, I'm good, I can handle it. All right, well, how about this? Go dry for a month and let's see if you can handle it. If you can handle that, then you might
out and bursting out.
No, not at all. It's hard. Yeah. It's hard, man. It really, really is. Because a lot of times they're not being honest. When we're kind of going through our programs, like, hey, how many alcoholic beverages do you have every day? Well, I mean, I'll have one or two. And that's what they'll say to the psychologist. Yeah. right? But you know what? When they're actually talking to the strength conditioning coach, because we have a holistic approach and nutritionist, and they're like, man, I want to be jacked just like Coach Frank. Because I'm overweight and everything. It's like all of a sudden you're getting real. And you're talking to the like, dude, well, what, you drinking? Yeah, man, I'm drinking too. Well, how much I probably drink like 6, 7, 8 beers, maybe, about 4 or 5, bourbons a night or whatever. My guys will tell my strength conditioning coach and my nutritionist everything. Even my physical therapist won't tell the psychologist and the social worker, oh no, I'm good. I'm fine. It's like, but they're lying to themselves, right? And the reality is if you really have if you don't have an issue with alcohol, then go for 30 days. Anyway, I had to jump on the bandwagon on that.
Yeah, no, and that's a good segue, man, to answer your question, right? So center around like what, the guy out here that's listening to this and wants to be a leader.
That's right.
In his life, maybe wants to be a leader in this space, maybe wants to be a leader in somewhere else. I think it points back to the conversation you and I were having in the office prior to recording when we were trying to kind of define success.
Yeah.
I believe all in the metrics, right? The scoreboard, right? I think there's a lot of things that we can use as ways to measure our success. Revenue in the bank account, are the numbers going up on a monthly basis? Are we setting goals and targets? Are we acquiring material things? Like if that's what drives you, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if that's the barometer, if that's the sole aim of like, I'm only successful if I get these things, I think you're going to be missing a major part of what this life is ultimately about. I had a paradigm shifting moment for me in redefining this over the last couple of years. Success being about alignment, and alignment being in my walking in integrity with the man that God has created me to be in every single area of my life. So the guy that is struggling with something right now and wants to begin to make a change, I believe in Jordan Peterson's 12 rules for life. The 5th rule being clean up your own room before you try to go out and change the world.
You just pull out Jordan Peterson. Holy smokes, man. Bomb drop. Hello. Love that guy. Yeah. He says the truth.
Yeah. I think we change the world one individual at a time. And I think it starts in our home first. If there's areas in your life that you need to clean them up for yourself first, begin to walk that out in integrity in every single area of your life, begin to become a light for your home, begin to shine that bright as you possibly can. And then I think the next opportunity for leadership will present itself. I think it's when you try to go out there and force your leadership upon people that it begins to become inauthentic. For me, we have a men's group that we meet with. It's called Roar. It's an online-based group. We'll meet every once in a while. A lot of guys spread off over the Tampa Bay area, Sarasota, Bradenton. But there's this theme that we try to hold out at the end of every meeting. It's like, okay, what are we going to take from this call and how are we going to live that out in our lives? And, for me, I didn't find my faith because somebody was standing on a corner with a microphone screaming things at me. I found my faith because I saw men in their lives living it out in a different way than any other person that I'd ever seen. And when I saw these guys on a regular basis, I said, I want more of whatever it is that they have. And what they had was they had Christ at the center of their life, but it's how they showed up. It was how they lived differently that began to forced me to ask the question, well, what's different about Mike? What's different about Ron? What's different about Josh? Oh, all these guys are in different corporate realms. They have different family lives, different family dynamics, but the unifying piece about all of them that enabled their light to shine differently was Christ was at the center of it all. So I want to lead in a way that when I walk away, people say, what's different about this guy? And I think that's real, true, authentic leadership.
So what I'm hearing right now is alignment. Alignment. So what Coach Frank is saying is that if you don't have alignment in your life, you're never going to actually meet your objective. So leadership is all about looking at, every aspect of your life and are you aligned? And I almost hear you're not just aligned horizontally, but vertically, right? Like, okay, let me make sure that I'm, I have my priorities right. So if I'm going to be a phenomenal leader, if I'm going to be a world changer as a leader, I need to make sure that I'm aligned. I'm aligned to my faith. I'm aligned to my family, and I'm aligned with my community. And everything is cohesive. Am I listening?
I think the vertical alignment first enables the horizontal alignment to fall into place. If you try to align yourself horizontally first, this may be off kilter. But if you go vertical first, the rest is going to fall into that alignment. And then I think it's once you're aligned vertically, it's then asking the question of God, okay, what do you want for my life? But what do I want in my life? I think that's that back and forth relationship. It's not that I'm just following what God is telling me to do every day. It's like, no, I've actually had some conversations with him about where are we going? So the alignment is followed by the vision for the man that I want to be and the man that I can show up into the world. And then by having that clear vision, I could set my path on this is what the business is going to look like. This is what my health and fitness is going to look like. This is what my future family is going to look like. This is what my community work is going to look like. This is what my finances are going to look like. So vertical alignment enables a horizontal to fall into place, but it's having that vertical relationship then say, okay, God, now where can we go with these gifts that you've given me?
This is so awesome. I love the alignment concept. And you didn't just choose vertical or horizontal. You said, when I'm aligned vertically, then everything horizontally comes together. That's basically what I heard, which is a perfect segue with, this driving ideology. The driving ideology is, and we talked about this, every day you get up. Why are you getting up? Why are you doing the work that you're doing? You could be doing a million other things in the world. Just like me. I could be doing a ton of other stuff. When I first got out of the military, I have some really great friends of wealth. They're in real estate development. They're in corporate construction. They're in land development. They're making all this money. It's like, Damon, I'll show you the way. And as I'm contemplating the next chapter of my life, I could not stop hearing this voice inside my heart, like in my soul. No, your mission is to take care of the men and women that you served with for the last 20 years, period. And the reality is that people ask me, well, what does success look like? I always tell people success is every day you get to do what you're called to do. You're making an incredible impact in that calling, and you get paid to do it. You notice the bunny was in the on the latter end, not in the very beginning, not in the initial. Every day, it's hard taking care of veterans. I'm telling you that right now. Dealing with suicide prevention, the struggle that that warriors have with suicidal ideations, and it's not just a veteran issue. It's not just a law enforcement issue. It's not just a first responder issue. It's an adolescent issue. It's a male issue. It's an American issue. Why do I get up every single day? I know why, and I'll tell you in a second, but I want to hear why Coach Frank, every single day, as hard as this topic is, as hard as the community is, because we talked about it, it could be tough at times to help these these men out. It could be tough at times to try to, implement these measures in corporate arena or faith-based communities or nonprofits or whatever it may be, right? Why does Coach Frank do it? What's your driving ideology? What's your why? Why are you doing this? Coach, tell the world.
Yeah, Damon, I get a chance to speak at a lot of anti-human trafficking events. I partnered with a couple organizations here locally that are doing amazing work on the ground, raising awareness around the real dangers of the sex exploitation. What's happening to our children? How are they getting access through social media? How are they getting access through technology? What's happening? How is there's ties to human trafficking and pornography? And one of the things I always start my talks with when I get a chance to speak at these events is that I see the sex exploitation world. So if we talk about sex exploitation being human trafficking and pornography as one of the strongest forces of evil in the world.
Dude.
And that's what drives me, is knowing that there's an actual enemy out there that is not taking days off, that is not taking sleep, that is fighting, that is trying to destroy our world, that is trying to feminize young men, that is trying to demasculate young men, that is trying to harm children, that is trying to harm young women. So when I wake up, I know that there's an enemy that I'm fighting, and that gives me the strength that I need to, whatever it is I'm going to be confronted with that day, probably call it a warrior's ethos or a warrior's type of mentality, right? You don't go into battle without knowing exactly who your enemy is and what his angles against you are going to be. So for me, yes, it's about helping men. It's about changing the world through providing better men, but it's actually, we're fighting one of the strongest forces of evil. So I would say that's the driving ethos, or that's what gets me moving from a bigger worldview perspective thing.
I'm going to tell you, so I just took this down as a note. I always have my producer make sure not to record when I'm taking down my notes. This is becoming crazy because I'm taking a ton of notes down from Coach Frank. Did you just not hear this bomb that just Coach Frank just dropped? Did you not hear it? Sex trafficking. I'm super passionate about combating sex trafficking, especially with children, innocent women, children. Passionate. If I was not in the suicide prevention space in the military community, it would be sex trafficking. And we partner with some great organizations, one specifically Skull Games, where we're actually, gathering together with these veterans, empowering them. And then those who were formerly trafficked coming together every quarter. They are, and they start doing, they hunt down bad people, the pimps, the individuals doing it. And a lot of what you talked about with pornography are all the indicators on, out in the cyber world. And absolutely, like, there's a direct correlation between sex trafficking and pornography. And it's disgusting. It is disgusting to me.
There's multiple, right? So we know that Pornhub in 2021 pulled down 10 million videos from their site because they couldn't verify whether the person in the video had consented or not. 10 million videos potentially on one site had the potential to be trafficking, right? If somebody is being filmed and then shown online without their consent, that is human trafficking. Now, there's another part of it that people are sometimes afraid to look at, and it's how these traffickers groom the young girls and women that they work with. If they know that they're about to have something done to them that is inhumane, the traffickers will put on the screen pornography to soften condition and just get these girls ready for about what's going to happen. Man, this is the biggest thing. More importantly than helping men. So I had a gentleman on my podcast, Alan Smith. He wrote a book called Men Fight for Me. He shared a story in the podcast, and I've talked about this a couple times, but I think it's important here today to bring it up. He was sitting in a conference. It was an anti-human trafficking event, and the woman on stage that was talking was a survivor. She had been trafficked, I think, over 50 times.
Oh my goodness!
Bought and sold over 50 times. And she said, I reached a point where I looked at everything that was happening in my life, and every person that was trafficking me was a man, and every guy that was purchasing me was a man. And I reached a point where all I wanted was a man to step up and fight for me. And that changed Alan's life. Literally, he wrote a book called Men Fight for Me. But if I can be an influence, if I can have a positive voice that changes the way that men think, because damn it, we are the consumers. We are the ones that are doing this. And I think if we're going to win this battle, it's going to be by recruiting and finding stronger men to go out there and fight it even harder than it's fighting us.
Man, I love it. That's a definite driving ideology. There's an enemy out there, and that enemy doesn't just infiltrate people's homes. That enemy is literally taking advantage, human trafficking, sex trafficking, child sex trafficking. It just goes on and on and on, right? You open up this Pandora's box, and I mean, it's nothing but just pure evil. And man, I thank you for sharing that. Men, stand up and fight for something that's right. Come on, man. We're living in a world right now where there's a lot of evil, and we need, I'm speaking as a man to other men. Stand up and fight for what's right, man, and what's just. Do it. Stop being a coward. Stop being afraid. Don't allow all these little things to consume you and to derail you and to distract you. Man, America needs you, man. The world needs you. Figure it out. Whatever it is that, the enemy's out there, figure out what that, and figure out a way to fight it, man. And I love what Coach Frank is talking about. And that's why he rebuilt recovery.com. It's a company that's empowering men to combat this addiction, pornography. So here you are. You're an industry leader. You are. In the Tampa Bay area, I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of people know who Coach Frank is, hands down. They know him because he's a subject matter expert. You're running a company. You're running an organization. Tell our viewers or listeners out there, our audience, whether you're, a company of one or a company of 30, a company of 100. I mean, this isn't the only company you've ever ran. You've been running lots of companies with lots of different employees. Sometimes you were the first one and the only, and some other times you were, you were the executive leader and you had many employees. So you're running a very, very influential company right now, an organization that's impacting men's lives, not just in the Tampa Bay area, all over the nation, man. What's the one variable, one component you want to tell our viewers out there to run a company like rebuiltrecovery.com? Tell us.
Yeah. And I appreciate all those words, Damon. We've had over 500 successful recovery stories through, our main core program, Reboot Your Life. And that's been in 12 different countries, man. So it's not just something that we've done in the Tampa Bay area.
Holy smokes. 12 different countries.
We've served 5 continents in 12 different countries, from Australia to India, South Africa, Dubai, all over South America. So yeah, it's had a global impact. Our team is small at this point. We went through a little bit of a downsizing this year. We were operating at one point with 6. Now there's 3 on a full-time basis. And then we contract some stuff out. But as we're kind of ramping some things back up, we're looking to, hopefully scale that back up. I don't know if we'll ever be 30, 40 deep. Maybe one day we will get there, but right now we operate on a very small team basis. For somebody looking to build a company, right? You know, I've worked in the ticket industry, entertainment, marketing, fitness, have done sales, coaching, leadership, retail-based sales, done executive recruiting. What I think has enabled, at least to the small degree of success that we've had now, is having a big enough vision to where everybody else's vision fits inside of it.
Nice. I love it. A clear vision, man.
Like our producer that's been with me since day one, man, he gets lit up with just the development of the creative side of things. So for him, all creative work, all production work is his to run with, right?
Yeah.
Obviously it aligns with the things that we're doing, but he feels ownership in that side of things. We have our social media guy, feels real ownership in what we're doing over there. I had 2 coaches that were working for us, had real ownership over some of the curriculum that they were teaching in that they were training. So I want to cast a big enough vision with the things that we're trying to accomplish. And I think that the world is big enough for us to do that. And there's enough men out there, for me to have the sights set on impacting and helping, 10 million men that everybody else is, whether there's design creative, whether they're social media, whether they're content production, whether they're coaching, everything that they do will fit into the bigger overarching vision of what we're trying to do.
So this is very, very important, because in order for you to actually, for you to have, to actually get to your destination and to meet your mission, you need to actually have a clear vision. That's the bottom line. It's one thing, we do land navigation, or if you're in a ship or something like that, you could either go around or you could go via direct. You really can. And so without a clear vision, it's really hard for people to have any ownership, because then if you have clear vision, then everybody knows not only what the destination is, but they're able to actually really collaborate along the journey, and they're more efficient, and they have this ownership. You kind of cheated a little bit, because I was like, you only get one. He's like vision, but he snuck in ownership. I'm going to talk a little bit about ownership, and then we're going to move straight into how he's connecting with his audience, with his people, with his consumer. Ownership is empowering, bro. Clear vision is obviously a strategic, something CEOs, executive directors have to have in order to be efficient. But man, when you talked about ownership as something that we have in our organization, when a warrior comes, that warrior is yours, right? The way that you handle, the way that you take care of, the way that you process it, from my creative manager, doing design and all the technology, to my case managers who are handling the warriors at first stop, they have ownership. But they can't have ownership without a clear vision. And that's 1,000%. That's a 1,000-pound bomb there. Perfect segue, since we're talking about 1,000-pound bombs. Strategically, how are you connecting with people? So you have this clear vision. People are owning it. Everybody's moving forward. Everybody's rowing. Everybody's in the boat and they're rowing all in the same direction. How do you connect with people? What exactly is it? You've got all these people out there. We've talked about this epidemic. 70% of men looking at porn. It's questionable how many of them are addicted. It's definitely, only 10% say that they are, according to certain polls and research, what you shared. But we both know it's a whole lot more than 10%. Guaranteed. So how do you connect with those people that are struggling, who have admitted that they have an addiction, and to those individuals that have not admitted that they have an addiction? How do you connect with them? How do you connect with your audience? How do you connect with your consumer? That person goes, all right, man, I need help. And then all of a sudden they hear what Coach Frank has to say and his team, and they pick up the phone, or they reach out, they send an email, or they get connected. What do you do?
Yeah. We talked about alignment earlier in the conversation today, man. And back in 2021, so I'd been running Rebuilt Recovery for 6 months at the time. I was going through kind of a life transition, relationships up. A lot of things were kind of resetting in my life. And in 2021, I said, you know what? For this entire year, I will not meet a person and spend more than 60 seconds with them and them not knowing what I do. So for me, it's been screaming it as loud as I possibly can from the mountaintop of who I am and what it is I'm out here trying to do. I mean, my flag is so deeply planted in the ground in this space that when people think about Coach Frank, when they think about Frank Rich, they immediately go to, oh, that guy that helps men with overcoming pornography. So I've screamed it from the mountaintop. Maybe it's rubbed some people the wrong way, but I don't really care at this point, because the enemy isn't stopping. So as long as they're going to continue to fight and chase these children down, and be in everybody's pocket 24/7, I can't stop. So we reach men just by being everywhere, you know, by going on podcasts and opportunities like today, by trying to change the paradigm of even how we started this conversation, saying, hey, it's not a sensitive conversation. It's not a topic that needs to be taboo. In fact, it's one of the most important conversations. So trying to shift the way that people think about that. And that's being real and being authentic, and living out my true integrity, walking in alignment with the things that I say I'm going to do. I do them. So try to lead by example first, but then I go everywhere, man. So we're all over the social platforms, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. You know, we're reaching 100,000 plus people per month across our various channels. The podcast has been great for us to connect with other experts. I mean, I've been fortunate to interview real world changers, real leaders, authors, entrepreneurs, people that normally wouldn't have that conversation when they come into my world. It's like, okay, we can talk about this from a different perspective. So just being clear on what it is I'm trying to do, and not letting anything stop me, and knowing that God put me here for a reason. God put me through the journey that I went through. I overcame all the things that I did to enable me to do what I do now. Because I truly see the work that I'm doing as a collection of my life's work and experiences. And this may sound, you know, grandiose or full of myself, but I don't think there's anybody more positioned or qualified to do what I'm doing than I am today. And I believe that to its core.
No, and 1,000%. When you told me that you struggle with pornography for 20 years, you said 20 years, you know, and you told me about how, you know, how it destroyed your life, how it controlled you, right? On every facet of, you know, of what you do and who you are. I thought, absolutely. I mean, why am I in the suicide prevention space for veterans? Because I struggled. I struggled, man. I have struggled, and everyone's like, "Oh, Damon Friedman, you know, he's got it all together, and you know, and he's an incredible leader." And they don't know that there's a fracture in my chassis, and I communicate that. No, I've struggled with suicidal ideations, and there's a lot of different reasons why, and it's very prevalent within the veteran community. That's why over 20 veterans take their lives every single day. There's not enough programs. There's not enough intervention. And I'm very well qualified to talk about that. Absolutely. Just like you've gone through your own struggles, and you've been mentoring men for quite a while now, right? So here it is, audience. You just heard Coach Frank, and what he's trying to tell you is, if you want to make an impact as a leader, regardless of what kind of organization that you're running, regardless of, you know, what cause you're passionate about, he's telling us all that as a leader, you got to be aligned first and foremost. And he talks about this vertical alignment, faith, family, you know, community, and then how it just becomes horizontal in its essence. He then talks a little bit about that there's an enemy. And the reality is the enemy comes in different ways, man. I'm telling you, the enemy is cunning. And in this way, he comes in through this pornography. It infiltrates and it infects everything. As a man, as a family, in the corporate arena. But then he blows us up he talks about this issue with human trafficking and sex trafficking with kids and women. Yeah, that's right. That is the enemy. And it is killing America. It's killing marriages. It's killing men. And then he talks a little bit about, as if you're going to run an organization, he's run a very successful organization, very successful. You got to have a clear vision. But I love his add-on. He cheated. He did too. He talks about ownership, clear vision, and ownership, which it was a perfect transition into his strategic connection. And wherever he goes, he's got a 60-second elevator pitch on what he does for a living, which is his mission. That's what you have right there. Coach Frank, we only have a couple more minutes. You're a successful leader in many industries. You're running rebuildrecovery.com. You're going to talk to the men. I'm going to give you the last word, last minute or two. You get to share. If there's somebody listening right now and they're struggling, what do you want to tell them? How can they get connected with you? Do they have hope? Talk to them, Coach, because there's people, there are a lot of men out there right now, and they need help. You get the last minute, man. What do you want to say to the audience? Those individuals that are struggling with pornography, struggling with this industry, just struggling, and they need a little Coach Frank in their life. What do you got to say?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Damon. For the guy out there that is perhaps struggling with this or something that was said here today maybe struck a chord with you and you're beginning to kind of think, man, do I need to maybe make some changes? Maybe it's been a part of your life for a decade. Maybe like me, it was 20 years. You've had multiple failed attempts, right? You said, you know what, I'm going to stop. And then you find yourself in exactly the same position you were before, 5-7 days later. There is hope. There's definitely a pathway out of this. I believe in humans more than anything in the world. And I believe we have the ability to transcend any struggle or challenge or an addiction that is holding us back in our life. But I think we have to believe that first. The biggest hurdle that we face with a lot of the men that have tried and failed multiple times is they can't see a pathway out of it. They don't see a future without pornography being a part of their life. We have to get clear on our vision of who we can be without it and set that as the aim. Yeah, it will be difficult. Yeah, there will come trials. There will come challenges, but we can grow into and develop the skills necessary to live a life without this. So if you're struggling and you've been trying and failing, check yourself at the door and be like, do I actually believe in myself enough? Are you struggling with the confidence? Are you struggling with the internal worth about how you see yourself? All that can be changed, but you got to shift your perspective first on, I can actually overcome this. Find people in your life to have regular conversations with, find some support and find a roadmap, and pair all that together, and you can and will overcome this. And don't think about doing it just for you. Think about the legacy, the impact that it's going to have on the rest of your family, on the next generation of little Riches or little Tommies or little Johnnies out there. So yeah, believe, have hope. And there's definitely a pathway out of this. And it is a whole lot better on the other side.
Man, Coach Frank, thank you so much for being on this podcast, man. You are definitely igniting a movement, man. How can people get a hold of you? You're at rebuildrecovery.com. Wow, they want to hear the human performance, superhuman podcast.
Yeah.
How can everybody get a hold of you? Tell everybody, because it's been an honor to have you here, man. It's been super blessing for you to share your heart, your passion, and to be able to communicate it. But even more, not just creating awareness, but providing a solution, bro. Coach Frank can help you overcome this really like evil addiction. How can people get a hold of you?
And brother, I appreciate you, man. So grateful to be back in here. I'm glad that, we got connected a few months back when we did. And I think it's just the beginning of something really prosperous for our relationship. I just see so much alignment in everything we're doing. So yeah, rebuildrecovery.com. You can check it out there. The podcast is The Superhuman Life. You can find that on any of the audio platforms. So we're streaming everywhere. And best place to connect with me personally is on Instagram. It's where I'm most active on social these days. Coach Frank Rich. Feel free to drop me a message there. But any of those channels, man, if you just put in Frank Rich on YouTube, you'll find me as well. So all over the place, man. And Damon, it's been a real honor today, man. Thank you, bud.
Hey, Coach Frank, thanks a lot for being here, man. This is awesome. I can't wait. Maybe one day we'll do a workout. But man, maybe we'll do the plunge together, bro.
Do the sauna, plunge, and workout.
I know, man. I'm telling you, it's calling out my name. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Coach Frank. If you're dealing with an addiction called pornography and it's killing your life, if it's destroying your marriage, if it already has, because I know many already, and you're trying to figure out how can I overcome, how I need a roadmap, Coach Frank is the man. Ladies and gentlemen, it is such an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you for listening to the Damon Friedman Show. May the commander of the universe be with you, and Godspeed. Thanks a lot, Coach Frank.